Welcome to This Explainer. Look, today we've got a case to break down that is highly sensitive, deeply disturbing, but absolutely critical to understand. We're going to be looking at the shocking preliminary hearing of David Anthony Burke, who you probably know in the music industry as the artist D4VD. The details emerging from this Los Angeles courtroom regarding the murder of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez are incredibly grim. But mapping out this evidence, it's essential to understanding the massive legal battle that's unfolding right now.
Okay, let's dive into this. The atmosphere inside that courtroom was undeniably heavy. Reporter Ashley Banfield described the scene pretty starkly, calling it literally a horror movie in a courtroom. You have a real grieving family sitting just feet away from a real defendant, shackled in an orange jumpsuit. The tension was just unimaginable as prosecutors started to lay out exactly what they believe happened to this young girl, completely stripping away the whole facade of a rising music star to reveal a deeply, deeply unsettling narrative. Section 1. The Courtroom Horror, a glimpse into the Tesla frunk. Now we have to look respectfully but honestly, very starkly, at the evidence presented against David regarding the discovery made in the front trunk, the frunk, of his black Tesla. Without much warning to the gallery or the victim's family, prosecutors threw up these massive monitors showing the crime scene, and the physical evidence was unimaginably gruesome. Detectives described garbage bags containing dismembered remains. The level of decomposition was so severe, causing a really tragic condition known as skin slippage, that Celeste's face was entirely unrecognizable. She could only be definitively identified through dental records. They also displayed a severed finger with a distinct Sure tattoo, alongside these horrifying images of blue plastic fragments literally embedded into her remains. We'll get to exactly why those blue fragments are so central to this case in just a minute. But you know what's really striking? As these horrific images were shown, causing Celeste's family to understandably break down in tears and forcing a court recess, the defendant's reaction, or really his lack of reaction, spoke volumes. David remained completely fixated. He was just staring at the monitors. According to reporters in the room, he was totally devoid of emotion. He didn't look away. He didn't flinch. The stark, chilling contrast between the weeping family members and David staring blankly at the remains of his former girlfriend, it gave experienced crime reporters in the room the absolute chills. Section 2. Chilling Police Encounters, February 2024. So to really grasp the prosecution's narrative of deception, we actually have to rewind the timeline a bit to earlier in the year, long before that grim discovery. Back in February 2024, when Celeste was officially still just a missing teenager, Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputies did a welfare check at David's home. And the body cam footage of this encounter paints a surreal picture. David answers the door wearing a bonnet, and instead of taking the police questioning seriously, he tries to act entirely too casual. He literally keeps eating his food throughout the whole interview. In a deeply inappropriate and frankly bizarre move, he even offered the working homicide detectives a beer from his fridge. He was trying so hard to project this casual, unbothered demeanor while artfully dodging all their direct questions. And during that exact same interview, David made some pretty bold claims that simply did not hold up. He insisted to police that he'd only physically seen Celeste once, back in November, and claimed she told him she was 18, but the documented reality completely shatters that story. Investigators later found United Airlines tickets on his computer right under Celeste's name, and we're not talking about quick road trips here. The travel logs show flights together from LA to Texas, where David is from, and even an international flight from LA to London. Let's be real, you simply do not take an underage girl on international flights if you've only casually met her once. No way. Perhaps one of the absolute most disturbing details from that February police encounter was the photo David voluntarily pulled up on his phone to show the officers. It was a picture of Celeste when she was in the 6th grade. She looked like a 10-year-old child in a Batman hoodie. It raises a highly, highly disturbing question. Why is a 19-year-old man keeping and freely offering up a photo of his alleged girlfriend appearing as a young child to the police? It speaks directly to the deeply troubling nature of their dynamic. Section 3. Physical and Digital Evidence, the Trail of Deception. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is how we transition from those behavioral red flags to a literal mountain of hard forensic data. The prosecution mapped out this chilling chronological trail of Amazon purchases tied directly to David. It looks exactly like a frantic, evolving plan of concealment. First, he buys a shovel, then chainsaws, next, a blue inflatable pool. Remember those blue plastic fragments embedded in Celeste's remains we talked about earlier? Well, prosecutors allege David used this very inflatable pool while dismembering her with the chainsaws, causing the blades to cut into the plastic and churn those pool shards right into the body. The purchase history then escalates to a burn cage. Actually, scratch that. The court described it more like a miniature crematorium, along with fire-resistant mats and heavy-duty cadaver bags. It illustrates a chaotic, completely horrifying trial-and-error approach to disposing of evidence. The timeline then narrows sharply on July 29th. This crucial date maps out David's frantic movements. In the morning, an iPhone tied to David's iCloud account, which was nicknamed Tranquilizer, disconnected from his Tesla for the last time. Later that afternoon, data shows navigation searches for Santa Barbara and the Santa Ynez Valley. By evening, surveillance footage captures David physically making a purchase at a Ross Dress for Less. This sequence is vital, It firmly establishes his location and his control over the vehicle right around the time of the alleged cover-up, even though the Tranquilizer iPhone and other key evidence are still missing.
Speaking of missing evidence, we are looking at a fierce legal battle over cell phones right now. On side A, that Tranquilizer iPhone, which prosecutors believe holds David's scraped location data, is completely missing, gone. On side B, police seized a light blue iPhone 15 Pro Max during a raid. Now, the lead detective confidently testified it's David's phone, citing selfies and credit card info they found on it. But the defense is fighting this tooth and nail, arguing it was tied to an email alias belonging to Celeste. The subtext here? The defense is likely trying to distance David from this device, potentially laying the groundwork to blame Celeste for any illegal material, like illicit photos, found on it. And this elegantly leads us to a massive unanswered question. What exactly is the Santa Barbara connection? Think about it. Why did David make specific navigation searches toward Santa Barbara, an area where a Caltrans worker later happened to find Celeste's passport on the side of the road? If he drove all the way out there, why did he leave her body in the frunk of his Tesla, parked just blocks away from his own Hollywood Hills home? It is a glaring inconsistency that investigators are still frantically trying to unravel.
Section 4. Money, motive, and assets. Protecting the empire.
So the crucial point is this staggering number, $10 million. When you look at the prosecution's theory of why a rising music star would allegedly commit such a horrific act, you have to follow the money. According to testimony from his former finance director, David generated more than $10 million in gross earnings between 2023 and 2025 alone. He was on the verge of a major, massive tour. Prosecutors are suggesting a powerful, very dark motive here. There are allegations that Celeste was unhappy with David dating other girls and was threatening to go to the police about their underage relationship. For a music star, criminal charges involving a minor would instantly shatter a $10 million empire. The prosecution's theory is straightforward. He silenced a whistleblower to protect his career.
And that intense focus on wealth? It definitely didn't stop when the tragedy occurred. It actively accelerated. In court, David's business manager actually admitted to facilitating a strategy to transfer the title of David's home right into his mother's name. When pressed by the prosecution, it was revealed this was explicitly done to shield assets and avoid civil liability from a potential wrongful death lawsuit by Celeste's grieving family. Furthermore, testimony revealed his finance team is actively searching for a new entertainment attorney for him right now, while he literally sits in a jail cell in shackles. It shows a shocking, heavily calculated priority placed on money and brand protection over human life.
Section 5. What happens next? The quest for justice.
Let's look at the ultimate legal stakes of this ongoing 3 to 5 day preliminary hearing. At the conclusion of all this, the district attorney will ask the judge to hold David to answer on incredibly grave charges. We're talking first-degree murder with special circumstances. He also faces charges of lewd acts with a minor, which is bolstered by alleged intimate photos discovered by police. And finally, the mutilation of human remains charge, which, as we discussed, is heavily anchored by the horrific physical evidence of those blue plastic pool fragments found embedded in the victim. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer gravity of this courtroom battle. District Attorney Nathan Hochman was physically present in the courtroom for this hearing, signaling the absolute highest level of priority for the state. He confirmed to the press that this is in fact a death penalty-eligible case. The ultimate penalty is on the table, looming large over every single piece of data and every gruesome photograph presented.
Which leaves us with this final, really profound question to consider. If millions of dollars and sudden fame truly provided the motive for this gruesome, chaotic cover-up, will this overwhelming physical and digital trail finally deliver justice for a 14-year-old girl whose life was cut tragically short? The search for the truth in this dark, incredibly complex case is far from over, but as the evidence continues to mount, the demand for accountability only grows louder. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning what lies beneath the surface.